Next one, pizza.
One. Has to be one.
Two.
It has to be one.
Wings are going to be in
Wings
there, right?
are going to be Wings over pizza?
Easily.
I'm going one.
Pizza's one for me, dude. Welcome to the Second and Short podcast, where the playbook is completely open. I'm Josiah.
I'm Christian.
Hayden. I'm Eli.
Just so you guys know, we are on Spotify now, so if you follow this link up here, you can see the audio-only version of this podcast.
Yeah, before we get into this week's recap, first we're going to go through our picks recap as we do every week. Again, you can see our picks on the Instagram. They are posted before Thursday Night Football. So our undefeated streak, when everyone agreed on a game, comes to an end with the surprising upset of the Cardinals over the Cowboys. However, we still went 5-1 this week in games that we agreed on. Again, not too surprising. People were hot in games that they went alone with coming up to this week. However, they struggled in games this week. I believe Kelsey was the only one to win a couple, as people that went alone and disagreed with the rest of the pack went 2-4. As for the standings for this past week, me and Luke led the way at 12-4. Luke continued a hot streak from last week. Kelsey took second with 11-5. Christian and Hayden both went 9-7, and Josiah went 8-8, sitting at 500. As for the total standings, sitting in first place, reflecting the first place winners for this week, is Luke and I at 32-16 at 67%. Hayden is then Kelsey is in second place or in third place at 30-18. Hayden at 29-19. Josie at 27-21. And rounding out at 25-23, just barely above 500, is Christian. Christian, you want to explain to the viewers what would happen if you finish in last place at the end of the year?
So loser has to do a polar plunge.
What is the polar plunge for those who don't know?
I mean, like there could be various. I see people doing the lake, but I don't know how we're doing it.
We live in a very cold climate with the lake,
and
during the winter, it obviously gets very cold. So the idea is that you take a plunge into Lake Erie.
And he'll be buck naked. So.
No.
Only spandex underwear.
Yeah, that's fair. Spandex underwear, that's not bad.
Yeah.
Well,
give you some more.
No video though.
No video.
If we do that, no video.
We'll just blur it out. We'll blur it out. Yeah.
One game you were right on, Christian, this week, and someone you've been riding for a while is the Dolphins. You want to talk about the Dolphins Broncos?
Yeah, so at the beginning of the game, it actually looked like it wasn't going to be a bad game. The Broncos were actually doing good on offense, but everything went horribly wrong after that. I mean, turnovers left and right, receivers kept fumbling. Wilson, it feels like Wilson couldn't really trust anyone when he was throwing it to. Their holding calls, whenever they scored a touchdown, and they just couldn't stop Miami's offense. Miami just kept rolling. Every time they got the ball, they just kept scoring. It was unbelievable, but as a Dolphins fan, it was pretty exciting to watch with their offense, especially with Jalen Waddle out too.
Would you guys have kicked the field goal for the record?
They tie the record, right?
Tie the record, yeah.
73.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I honestly, I don't have a problem with that sort of thing.
Yeah. I don't. It doesn't really matter to me because it's like there was no stopping them on any given play. It's like I think they scored touchdowns on 8 of 9 drives at one point or something like that.
Yeah.
They ended up scoring 10 total touchdowns in that game. But I mean, it's just I was looking at the top speeds and the next gen stats and how many of the top 5 fastest plays this year do you guys think belong to the Dolphins?
All of them.
Probably 4 or 5.
All of them, dude.
All 5.
It has to be
and
all
2
of
of them were this week. Devin A-Chain broke 21 miles per hour on a play twice this past weekend. The other one, Raheem Mostert has 1 and Tyreek Hill have 2. It's everybody knew Tyreek Hill was fast. Everybody knew Raheem Mostert was fast. I think a lot of people knew Devin was fast coming out of college, but that fast. He holds he's number 1 fastest play this season. It's 21.93 miles per hour. That offense is probably the fastest offense we've ever seen in the history of the NFL.
They might end up having more of the fastest plays when it's all said and done because you still have Waddle there. Jeff Wilson's coming back at some point. Raheem Mostert. It's just crazy that the problem with assembling a track team as a football team is you wonder about the durability. Mm-hmm. But here in the early goings, they look fine. Tua looks healthy. He's avoiding hits. the Dolphins, I mean, they're the best team in the AFC, and it's not really even a conversation right now.
Yeah.
They are. I just like,
Well,
it's so exciting. I'm not going to argue that. I promise. It's so exciting that almost while you're watching, you're like, someone's going to get hurt in a couple weeks, like with the Dolphins luck. Like it would suck, but it's just watching how exciting they are. I just can't see it. I don't know. Something's going to happen. I just have a bad feeling. I hope it doesn't. I really do, because it's so fun to watch. McDaniel's a lovable guy. I love Tua. I just like the Dolphins are cursed, and we'll see if it ends up holding true.
if the season ended today, would Mike McDaniel be Coach of the Year and Tua be MVP?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't even
know
think
that
it's
there's an
really discussion right
argument.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to just go through like some of the 2-1 teams, but yeah, I mean, just with how explosive they are and what the points they're putting up.
In terms of QB statistics, Kirk Cousins is next. So 0-3, that's not happening.
Yeah.
And then running back, I mean, McCaffrey's had a stellar start to the year. Jefferson, of course, but 0-3.
Yeah.
And then I think we start to get into defensive guys, whether it's Micah Parsons, TJ Watt. So
Yeah, I think one last thought with the speed thing is like there have been so many players that have come out of the draft and in the NFL that are just speed guys, but aren't necessarily football players. And I think one thing about the Dolphins is like they have so much speed, but they're all football players. Like they're just good. Like you look at guys like John Ross, who sets the NFL Combine 40-yard dash record, but like he wasn't a football player. It's like all these guys are just like really good football players and just like blazing fast. So I think they've done a good job with drafting, but also like bringing in the talented guys that they want that can make this offense. I mean, Denver's not a terrible defense. Like 70 points they gave up, but at the same time, it's like, you know, what's the ceiling for these guys? Like against a really bad defense, like could they score 100? No, but like, I mean, it's wild to think about.
going to the other sideline for Denver, I feel like Russell Wilson, like I'm not a fan of the guy, but I think if you objectively look at his career, he's been a Hall of Fame quarterback. Not first ballot, not elite, but he's had a Hall of Fame career. I think the longer he sticks around, it's just going to hurt his resume and his case 5 years after he retires. And I think he can still play decent football. I just think that with all this losing, his ego, his persona around the league with fans and other players, like it just continues to drop and drop. Nobody wants him to succeed. I feel like his best bet to get into Canton would be leaving after this year, leaving when he still has football left.
Like retire.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Broncos are in disarray, especially after this week. I think it was Garrett Bowles in the post-game press conference in the locker room. He's like, I'm tired of losing. He's like, I've been here for 7 years and all we've done is lose. Like, there's going to be so much talk about the Broncos this year, but I think just also in reality, like, those players are going to start to give up. Like, if they can't figure it out soon, like, they brought in a guy, a quarterback who was already on a big contract, gave him, a 5-year contract extension after he'd never played a single game for them. And they like put all their chips into one pot, and it has not been a good pot so far.
Correct. All right, I think next we have Josie with the Cowboys and Cardinals, which was probably the upset of the season so far.
Century, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's kind of one of those things where, like, I think the Cardinals played better than they are, and I think that the Cowboys played way worse than they actually are. I don't think there's any reason to really overreact from either side. And I'll talk about that a little bit in a second here. But with the Cardinals, like I said, they've been playing well above this whole season, really, well above what anybody expected, including myself. Like, I think I put in the NFC overview their floor at 1-16, and then I said, like, it'd be generous to give them 5 wins, but that's where I put their ceiling. You know, I still think that their ceiling is probably 5 wins, but I don't think it's at this point as generous as maybe I thought it was when I initially said it. I think teams are underestimating them going into it. I think that's exactly what happened in this week. Is the Cowboys defense specifically was just like, oh, we're gonna put up 40. It's gonna be 40-0 like it was in week 1, and they just kind of like thought it was gonna be handed to them. And I think that kind of also played a role in it. I also think that Josh Dobbs has played really well. He hasn't been like a superstar or anything like that, but he's done what he needs to do to move drives, to get down the field. Now to talk a little bit about the Cowboys, because I think there's more to dissect on that side. If you're a Cowboys fan, I don't think there's a need to panic necessarily, because this is who the Cowboys have been for years. Like, they're going to lay eggs against dumb teams. They're going to have a great regular season record, and there's really no need to panic until you get to the playoffs, right? Because that's where they've struggled in the past to get past that 1 win in the playoffs, 2 win in the playoffs. It's like they're going to have a good regular season record and they're going to get to the playoffs. It's just a matter of like, what are they going to do when they get to the playoffs? I think that the panic from the Cowboys side needs to come on Dak throwing game-sealing interceptions and making game-ending turnovers basically at the end. That interception he threw in the red zone to Kaiser White, that was bad. That was awful. Like he was basically triple covered. He had 3 guys within 5 yards of him. I don't remember who the receiver was that he was throwing it to, but like it was a bad interception. And honestly, I would say that it's probably all on Dak. That throw, like he didn't need to make it in that moment, but he did. That was the decision that he made, which is kind of concerning. And it's something that he seems to have done for his entire career pretty consistently. His career touchdown to interception ratio is like 2.5 touchdowns to 1 interception. He has 169 touchdowns and 66 interceptions. Like that's not good. And for the other stats that he's put up, like he has like 25,000 passing yards in his career. It's like his other stats have been great, but like that touchdown to interception ratio was bad. And like I think we'd be talking about that completely differently if he was able to get the interceptions things under control, but like he really hasn't.
I'm going to push back a little bit on that just because I think especially at the beginning of his career when the offensive line was still the best in the league by a mile, the pressure wasn't on him and he was more the game manager. But as the offensive line started to age and get a little washed up, Zeke started to have a little bit of wear and tear on the knees. That's when he kind of had to step in and take over. And because of that, I think we have seen more interceptions. Also, last year, I feel like creates a little bit of lopsided data just because the interceptions were just so crazy. I think he had like 16, led the league in picks in just like 10 games. I think that's going to kind of skew the data a little bit. I do think, though, as he gets deeper and deeper into his career, he looks more and more like his predecessor, Tony Romo, and not in a good way. I mean, I have so many memories of Tony Romo just throwing game-ending interceptions, like you said. And because it's Dallas, everyone loves to see it. Dallas choking in big games. I think if they just stay the course, give Tony Pollard the rock 30 times a game, he's on a franchise tag. Who cares if you just run him into the ground? 30 touches through the air or on the ground. Try and take the load off Dak.
Yeah, I mean, looking at his stats for interceptions for his career, is like he's basically gone double digits every other year. I mean, his rookie season when he was offensive rookie of the year, he only threw 4. Then he went 13. Then he went 8. Then he went 11. Then he went 4. Then he went 10 and then 15. So like these last 2 years specifically have been the ones where he kind of showed consistency in that bad area. But it's been very up and down, it seems like, so far for his career. And the one last thought with the Cowboys is obviously losing Diggs is big, but that defense needed to be able to figure it out. They have way too many players, too many good players to give up 28 points to the Cardinals. Like, I mean, I get that Rondale Moore run. Like, I don't think Micah Parsons was in on that play, but like you have too many guys to let that up. Like, I mean, he's fast, but like I don't know. I feel like they gave up too many big plays. And the face mask on the last drive on James Conner, like. You gave up a first down when you didn't need to on a stupid penalty when he was already wrapped up by like 4 people and then you get a face mask. Like they got to get that figured out. But I think that as far as the Cowboys, there's no need to panic based on one really bad loss. But I mean, we'll have to wait and see, I guess.
No, I think it's important. You were talking about earlier about how you're not necessarily concerned with them in the regular season and making the playoffs, but for the playoffs and all of the concerns that you brought up with the Cardinals game specifically really kill teams in the playoffs, especially when you're playing a team that's better or a team that tries to keep possession of the ball and just shorten the game. Like you can't turn the ball over, you can't give up explosive plays, and you can't have stupid penalties. And that's what the Cowboys did in this game. And that's a huge cause of concern in the playoffs because I think possessions just go down in the playoffs. Teams play a little more conservative. They try to kill the clock a bit more. When you play the Niners, you're not going to be able to have stupid penalties. You're going to have to get off the field on third down. You're not going to be able to have turnovers because then they're going to kill you with a 7-minute drive. Yeah. And I mean, and you can't give up explosive plays against them, and they have an explosive offense. So I don't know. Again, a huge cause for concern in the playoffs. But like you said, I'm not too concerned with them getting a wild card spot in the regular season.
Here's what I'm going to say. I know how you feel about Jonathan Gannon. Gannon. I mean, me personally, I still don't like him either. But can we really come at him right now? Because every game,
I don't like him, but they have
every
played
game he's
tough
played,
every
like
single
he's
game.
been in it, and he's coached his team well with a crappy roster they have.
No, they've done a great job, especially when I love him to death, and there's some eerie bias, but James Conner's been the best Cardinal this year, and by a mile.
Yeah.
And Eli mentioned the 49ers. We're going to see that showdown, probably a preview of the playoffs in just a couple weeks. They have a lot of better players than James Conner, specifically at the running back position. So it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of respond. This is kind of one of the knocks on Mike McCarthy. Undisciplined teams that don't know how to react to controversy, don't know how to react when things start to go wrong. Something went terribly wrong. Let's see if they can have short minds and just get back to playing their brand of football.
Be a goldfish. Short memory.
Yeah. Well, next we're going to do the Browns and the Titans with Eli.
Yeah, I mean, we saw a much improved Deshaun, which I think was very comforting for Browns fans. Very high completion percentage. It's at this point, it's so consistently inconsistent, where he'll have a week like against the Steelers. He looked awful. He might have lost them a game against the Steelers, but they just made mistakes all over the place. Whereas this game, he just did what he needed to do. He needed to distribute the ball. Obviously, they struggled running the ball, but looking back at the stats, I was surprised to see that they were very balanced in play calling. However, obviously, that's going to be skewed with when you're up. Well, I think they won 27-3. They're going to run the ball later to kill the clock. But at the same time, keeping it balanced, I think, is going to be important going forward. Jerome Ford played well. He looked really good when they brought him out wide against the linebacker, had a nice double move on a touchdown. I mean, this defense for the Browns is ridiculous. I mean, I have written down easily top 3 defense in the league. I mean, they're the number 1 defense in many, if not almost all categories so far this year. Obviously, a lot of people thought the first game against the Bengals was a fluke just with, Joey being a bit banged up and then the weather as well. Steelers, not the best offense, but they looked much improved this past week. And then the Titans have struggled a bit to start. But I mean, the Browns, it's one thing when you're playing bad offenses to have good defensive games, but their defense is just absolutely dominating right now, especially with Garrett. He had 3.5 sacks, and that video went viral of their tight ends just following him back and forth until I think they had to use a timeout before they had to delay a game. I mean, you just don't see that in the league very often. It's an interesting strategy, especially to keep doing it until the play clock's going to go to hit 0 and you have to call a timeout. And then as for the Titans, like, there is huge concern there. Derrick Henry had 11 carries for 20 yards. Again, the Browns defense has looked very good so far against the run game too. But 11 carries for 20 yards for what many call the best running back in the league is really rough. And I mean, the Titans are struggling right now, and I don't see it getting any better soon. And I don't think they can challenge the Jaguars for the top of the division, even though that division is going to be very weak. And the Jags even lost a game this week.
Yeah, the Jags look bad. They look pretty bad.
Right. I mean, this division is awful. Like, can the Colts make a run for it?
I think that the Texans honestly might have a better chance at making a run for it.
They have a division win.
So I'll talk about the Texans in the week.
I think CJ, I don't want to steal too much of your thunder, but I feel like CJ Stroud's been the best rookie quarterback. D'Amico Ryans, nobody really necessarily thought it would be successful right away, but everyone kind of liked that hire. I don't know. We'll talk more about that later, obviously. But
I mean, I feel like there's been a lot of buzz around a Derrick Henry trade this season for whatever reasons. Like, so Eli, since you did like the research on this one, like, do you see that as a possibility? Like, does Derrick Henry get moved before the trade?
I mean, if I were the Titans, I would. I think Tajay Spears has looked pretty good. Their rookie from Tulane, I believe. I mean, he's looked solid. And if Henry's not doing anything, again, we talk a lot about running backs these past few weeks. I think the good teams that, I know you guys are going to hate me for this, that have good analytics departments and can predict when a running back is starting to go downhill, which isn't hard to do.
Yeah.
analytics, but
I mean, you see the teams that are good, they know when to ship players off. And I mean, Derrick Henry's not doing the best, and a running back, and this day and age in this league, I don't think a running back's going to get you much closer to a Super Bowl, let alone an AFC championship, let alone a division championship, let alone a wild card spot if you're a bad team. And I don't think they're a good team right now.
the only team that I can even remotely consider giving up compensation where the Titans would even consider this is Baltimore.
I was literally
That's
just
the
about
only
to say
team.
Ravens.
But then even that gets a little tricky because there's the rivalry history going back to the AFC Central.
True.
Even just a couple years ago with the logos. I don't know if it would happen, but that's the only team where it really makes sense logistically for either side, I feel like.
No, from your question, it's like as the Titans, I'm 1,000% looking to ship them. If I'm another team, I'm not Tatum's point, I'm not giving them crap for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think they'd have to give up to get him? Like a third? I mean, you could get
A third might. I don't even know if a team needs to give up a third.
you think it'd be like a fifth.
All right, maybe
Well, I mean,
maybe a third.
Isaiah
I guess.
Simmons, a young safety middle linebacker.
That was
like a fifth,
it's a
right?
different
He was a
situation.
seventh.
Yeah, 7. Like
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
that's wild. He was the
Maybe a
fifth
third or
overall
fourth
pick,
now,
something
you're
like
right.
that. Like
I don't know.
Maybe
With
a fourth?
the contract too.
7th overall.
I don't know if I'm giving that.
well, you don't take the hit in the first year, right?
Well, he only has a couple years remaining anyway. His contract's almost. I just don't think it's feasible. Like McCaffrey got sent off for like a second and then a couple late round picks, and that was like a big deal. Like everyone thought that the Niners gave up a lot for it. Obviously, hindsight, who cares that he's a running back? He's one of the best all-around football players in the league.
Yeah.
But Derrick Henry doesn't offer you that versatility where he can line up wide. He can split out in the slot. Him in Baltimore, him and Lamar would be scary. Like even if Henry's even half the player that he used to be, but I just don't think it's happening.
Again, you guys are going to hate me for this, but I'm going to bring baseball into the situation. So when you're thinking about, just hear me out. So when you're thinking about, seriously, when you're thinking about in-season trades, obviously there's much more in-season trades around the trade deadline in baseball.
Oh my gosh.
Just listen. Whenever you're going to give up a lot of compensation, you're thinking, all right, is he going to be the piece that gets me a World Series in baseball, Super Bowl here? To your point, the Niners, I think they truly believe in it. And I agree that the McCaffrey was that one piece to get them to a Super Bowl. I don't think there's a team that is a Derrick Henry away from a Super Bowl. Even the Ravens, I don't think Henry's that piece that gets them to the Super Bowl where you're going to give up a second or third round pick. And I can't think of a team that's a Derrick Henry away from winning a Super Bowl because you're not going to give up good compensation to win the division. Like it's got to be that step to win it all.
Yeah.
I think Baltimore could convince themselves that he is the piece, but I agree with you. I don't think really any team. Baltimore's the only one with an argument. I don't even think that they are necessarily a Derrick Henry away from being true contenders. Yeah. But Christian, do you have anything to say? Because I actually want to talk about the coaches in this matchup.
What you're saying, Derrick Henry? I would say F them picks and give up a third at least or a second.
If you were who?
The Baltimore Ravens, I would do it.
Right. So do you think any other team
I think
comes
that
into
he would
play
help
there, or
them
just
out.
Baltimore?
I was trying to think of teams. I think Baltimore is obviously number one for any team who needs a running back. I mean, Dolphins, they look like they don't need one now, so they're not a team.
He just slow down their offense.
I just don't know
insane.
who else
He doesn't run a 4-3 at least, so we
definitely
can't have him.
number one that needs a running back. But I can't think of any other teams who are at least contenders this year that.
I mean, the Bears running game has been awful. I mean, it's not going to happen.
Bears
but, like,
obviously could use him, but they're not contender.
They'll probably give up their first overall just for fun.
they'll give up the 32nd pick in the draft for
the other
failed
thing
play.
that kind of would drive the Derrick Henry price down is the fact that Jonathan Taylor's still out there. And I think everyone can agree that Jonathan Taylor has more potential, higher upside right now in 2023 than Derrick Henry does. So that's another thing. If the team's like, all right, if I'm going to give up a second rounder and dedicate this much of the salary cap, like I'm going to go for the guy who's a lot younger and has a lot less tread on the tires.
I mean, how many years off is Derrick Henry from what Zeke is right now? Like 1 or 2 years off?
They were the same
maybe
year.
two at the most. Like in 2 years, I don't.
Henry's always just been so weird because a lot of his statistics come in like spurts. Like he'll have like a down stretch where he just doesn't do anything, and then he'll pull off like 3 200-yard 3 touchdown games, and then everyone's like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest running back we've ever seen. So I don't we might just be overreacting. He's still fine, and then he's gonna have 2,000 yards this year, but it's been undeniable that he does seem to have lost a step throughout the season.
Well, you mentioned the 2-year thing, Eli, and if you think about it, like they were in the same draft, right? Were Zeke and Derrick Henry?
Henry and yeah, they were
2016.
actually.
And
Yeah,
so it's like you look at that. It's like,
Henry was like
2015.
Zeke, they were 2016 because I was golf year.
how many years was it before Derrick Henry took over as the bell cow there? Two. So Zeke had.
Was it just two?
I think it was just two.
I thought it might have
year
been
he had
even more.
1,400. That third year, I think in his career, he had 1,400. It's like when you
Here,
look
keep
at
going.
that, it's
Eli,
like,
you want to pull up Derrick Henry stuff?
well, then you look at the comparison between the two. It's like that's the running back shelf life. Even for as dominant as those guys were during that time, it's like whatever those years were is like the shelf life on those like dominant power type running backs.
No, and Derek also, like, I don't want to discredit him. Like, he's just insane. Like, people don't realize how fast he actually is for his weight. Because you look at Najee, the other big power back from Bama in the NFL, and Najee's speed is just not even remotely close to Derrick Henry's, just showing how special of an athlete he truly is. Eli pulled up the stats, and his first 1,000-yard season was in 2018. But even in that year, he only had 215 carries. So he still wasn't the crazy Derrick Henry that we expect. Then his fourth year, that's when we start to see the 300 touches. And then in 2020, he jumps all the way at the 378. And then he hit 350 almost just last year also. He's already at 51 this year.
It's much higher than I thought it would be.
Yeah, and he's at 163 right now. 50, that's not
63
good.
what?
163 yards.
So
He's averaging 2 yards right now.
3.2 yards per carry. Yeah, I mean, you expect him to get 4 or 5 yards every carry and then bust a 15, 20 yarder, at least one a game to get him towards that 4 or 5 yards per carry. But 3.2, I mean, it's rough to start. Again, I hope he proves me wrong and goes off this year. I wouldn't be shocked. But even if he does go off this year, I still don't see him being, again, 1 or 2 years away from being where Zeke's in a position right now where he's like a backup on a different team and maybe a guy that's going to play in the red zone.
No, and it also doesn't help that Ryan Tannehill has played poorly. The line has taken a step back the last couple of years. They've gotten older. And then A.J. Brown's not there.
Yeah,
like
big.
A.J. Brown, Ryan Tannehill, and Derrick Henry was one of the best triple-headed monsters that we really saw for a couple of years there. We kind of discredit that just because of Tannehill, but that was when Tannehill was playing crazy good football.
Yeah, they play the Bengals this week. The Titans do, and the Bengals are giving up over 5 yards per carry. So this will be a very telling week of where Derrick Henry and the Titans are at.
You mentioned taking some of Derrick Henry for granted. It's like, think about like the guys who can break off 99-yard touchdown runs and have the endurance to do it. They're like, what, 5'10", 5'11", 190, 200 pounds. It's like Derrick Henry's 6'4", what, 235, 240 pounds. Like imagine, first of all, being able to get that much body up to 22, 23 miles an hour and then sustain a 99-yard touchdown run. Like his conditioning had to be out of this world to be able to do that. That's nuts.
I do want to quickly mention some coaches in this matchup before we move on. First of all, we'll go to the Browns side, and I'm actually going to go to the defensive coordinator. Jim Schwartz deserves another head coaching shot. I know things didn't go great in Detroit, but he's turned around multiple defenses. He was a part of Philly when they won the Super Bowl. Now he seems to turn Cleveland into a juggernaut. And then I also want to mention Tennessee, and this is super presumptuous, but there were rumblings last year about Vrabel possibly moving on. I know he just won a power struggle with John Robinson, the former GM. But there are two spots that make a lot of sense for him, especially as Tennessee starts in this decline. And one of them is a college football team. Ohio State. If they lose to Michigan again and they give Ryan Day the boot, if his alma mater comes calling, I honestly think he would dominate the college scene. But this isn't a college podcast. So the other team, everybody thought that Josh McDaniels or Matt Patricia were going to be Bill Belichick's successor. Well, McDaniels is in Vegas, and then Patricia has kind of been soured upon. He's in Philly now as a defensive analyst. He was that adjunct offensive coordinator last year, so I don't know if that would necessarily fly anymore. What if Vrabel goes to New England and he's Belichick's successor? Obviously, it's week 4. And that's super presumptuous, but that is something that I think that people aren't really paying attention to, but both I think are very feasible and stuff that we could be talking come around Super Bowl time when like news just starts to come out from everywhere. Just something to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
Any do you guys think I'm like crazy?
I
or-
really like the Patriots take. I think it's an insane long shot for Ohio State, and I think that if Ohio State goes 10-2 this year, even if they lose to Michigan, I don't think they'll get rid of Day, even though people will be calling for his head.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody who doesn't watch a ton of college football, like, I'd like to see the coaches that have seen success in the NFL stay in the NFL, because I like to see again, I don't really watch college football, I watch NFL. So
Jim Harbaugh come back.
Hot take. But yeah, I mean, I think that if it's not Tennessee, because like it's a rebuild, if he doesn't want to stick around for a rebuild at this point, like he's going to move somewhere. It's like, I think that based on who I'm thinking of right now, like the Patriots probably make the most sense because we don't know the timeline on Bill Belichick. But to go with the Jim Schwartz thing, like he's been like outside of the head coaching stuff where like he hasn't really done super well, like as a defensive coordinator, he's been ridiculously good. Like
One of the best defensive minds in the past decade.
Yeah,
by
absolutely. And it's
far.
like you look at that, it's like, could this guy be a Hall of Famer just based off of defensive coordinator? Like,
I don't think they do that, but part of me,
Yeah,
like
just like
Dick
coach.
LeBeau, obviously he's in as
Yeah.
a player, but I mean, look at what he did with those 2000 Steelers defenses.
We've been talking about this game way longer than I thought, so I apologize, but why can't we just let good coordinators be coordinators? Like that's a whole
that's
different
no,
conversation, but some people just aren't meant to, like you see it more in the college game so much where coordinators are insane masterminds. They'll go be a head coach, they'll fail for 2 years and they'll go back and be an insane coordinator again. And they're like, all right, when's their second shot? It's like, can we just let good coordinators be good coordinators?
And I agree with you, but also at the same time, like, I feel like coaches and GMs, especially GMs, it's even worse, but they don't get second and third chances. Meanwhile, there's a super talented quarterback prospect, but they're like, oh, he went to Cleveland. He had a bad sporting cast. He had a bad coach. He's just going to be a backup for a couple years, and then we're going to turn him into the next Steve Young. And then they get third chances even after that. Look, Brock Purdy obviously has secured the spot now, but there were people that were serious about saying Sam Darnold's going to be the Niners starting quarterback this year. So I agree with you, and that is the case for most of them, where like good coordinators can be great coordinators, but just not be fit to be a head coach. But also I think that there are GMs and head coaches where for giving all these quarterback busts second and third opportunities, I would like to see them get another coaching job, especially Jim Schwartz. He's hasn't been a head coach in over a decade. It's not like he's just been out of it for a couple of years. So
I think too, these young coaches that are coming up, like everybody wants to find the next McVay, everybody wants to find the next Shanahan. It's like a lot of these young guys have aspirations of being a head coach. So I think that does play a role in it. It's like as they start to get older, if they do have field experience as head coaches, they feel more comfortable settling into a coordinator position. So I think it's this run on such young head coaches right now that's kind of playing to what Eli was talking about. Because I do agree, like not everybody's cut out to be a head coach, but like they all have aspirations to do it, and everybody's so desperate to find the next McVay, to find the next Shanahan, to find the next anybody coming out of San Francisco. Like, yeah.
well, we like Eli said, we went a little long on that one, so I'll just quickly touch up on the Bengals and the Rams. I picked LA to win this game, but I mean, are we any of us really surprised? The Bengals are fine, even at 1-2. Like, even if they would have started 0-3, I would have been like, they're fine. They have Joe Burrow. They have Jamar Chase. They have T. Higgins. Logan Wilson's one of the best coverage linebackers in football. Burrow looks healthy. I think the Rams were honestly the more interesting team in this matchup. Stafford, I mean, ever since going back to his Detroit days, but especially with the LA days, McVay kind of just covers up for some of his boneheaded mistakes. But he's just turning the ball over at an incredible rate. He did that the Super Bowl season too, but we forget about it because he finished up with a ring. Puka Nacua is also interesting because, yeah, he's been the fantasy darling. He's been the underdog story. But if Cooper Kupp does come back, which as of right now, I think he will, it'll be interesting to see X's and O's, how they scheme that up. Because Puka's actually been playing in Cooper's spot. He's been playing the Cooper Kupp role. He's been running Cooper's routes. It's going to be interesting. Do they make Cooper move somewhere else or do they move Puka? Because if Cooper's healthy, then he's one of the best in the league at what he does. So that's just something to kind of pay attention to. And then also, we were talking about running back trades. Can the Rams just trade for Jonathan Taylor? Like, Kyron Williams, I think, is a solid RB2, but
what do you think they'd have to give up for them?
You kind of can't get rid of.
I would give up a third or a second.
But like, why? If you're how many years? I mean, he has a couple of years.
I think
like,
they can still be a contender, maybe, but also I
Can
feel
they?
like if they're not,
Yeah, in the NFC,
a contender.
In the NFC,
What's
yes.
a contender? A Super Bowl contender?
No,
All you need to do is to get to the
Playoff
tournament.
contender? Who like is that?
No, because if you get in the tournament, anything can happen.
Sorta. Not if you have
Not sorta.
Yeah, sort of. Not. I mean, you're not. Anything can happen, but not when there's teams like the Niners and Eagles that are much better than you. Even if you have,
They
Jonathan
made their
Taylor.
team young and they have a lot of young
2005
people playing.
Steelers, 2010 Packers. So like, it's not college football where Bama or Georgia wins every single year.
I don't think Jonathan Taylor gets them closer. Gets them closer to a
100%
Super Bowl, but not enough to.
Just
where
like
I'd
the
get rid
Falcons
of-
taking Bijan. Yeah, they're taking a running back top 10's not normally smart, especially in 2023, but adding a great player in a weak conference makes that team better.
So they trade for Jonathan Taylor. That makes them what, a top 10 Super Bowl contender? Like that's
It gets them back into the tournament conversation.
that's
If
worth
they
it.
I
get in
think
the
the
tournament.
Rams are fine if they end up sucking. They suck, and I think.
And
they're
if
fine
you're
with
Sean
it.
McVay, though, unless you're really banking on getting Caleb Williams next year, Sean McVay, what does he have to lose? He doesn't really seem like he's like everybody's just waiting for him to take the 10-year gap like John Gruden did because he was a part of that Gruden tree. Everybody knows he's going to go to TV for a little bit over a decade. He's going to come back and he's going to be what, like 50? He can still coach another 20 plus years after that. So if I'm Sean McVay, unless I'm really banking on, all right, we're going to trade up and get Caleb Williams, because even if they finish poorly, they're not going to be the first overall pick, I don't think, at this
Are
point.
they really going to trade again to give up all their first round picks like they have in the past? It's like
The way they're talking about Caleb Williams, yes. I think that
insane.
we are going to see some crazy, once again, it's week 4,
Yeah.
but we're going to see some insane trades for quarterbacks in the draft this upcoming year. And there's going to be a bidding war for Caleb Williams.
Matt Stafford to the Jets confirmed. Tank.
I'll see if he plays
And
next
see-
year. I don't know. We'll
No,
see if
I mean
if
this year.
So going back to
Yeah.
the Puka thing. Speaking of hot, maybe you guys will agree with this. I don't think you will. I mean, is Cooper Kupp a system receiver?
Yes and no. I think that kind of comes along with saying, is Brady a system quarterback? Cooper Kupp is the system, if that makes sense, because what makes him so special isn't necessarily any of his physical gifts, which have improved since he entered the league. When he came out of Eastern Washington, he was nowhere near as fast or as strong as he is now. So he has improved on those physical traits, but it's the intangible stuff. He thinks like a quarterback. Sean McVay, and Stafford are in unison every single play. And that's what makes it so special. So yes, he is a system wide receiver in a way, but also he is the reason why that system is the system that it is.
I
So you're
think he'd
saying
be
like
good
he
anywhere.
almost created the system.
Correct.
It's not it's more Kupp system than McVay's
Yeah.
system.
It's more
Built
more,
around Kupp.
It's more him than, let's say, a Wes Welker or a Julian Edelman for the Patriots, where they were really just plugged in. Hey, you're going to play the Y. You're going to be the slot receiver. You're going to catch everything. You're going to run all these short underneath routes, and Tom's just going to throw it to you every single time.
Yeah.
So Cooper, calling him a system wide receiver is disrespectful, but he is the system itself.
See, and I was when I'm watching Puka play, I'm not thinking like, oh, anybody could do what Cooper Kupp does. I'm thinking, wow, Puka and Cooper Kupp are oddly similar in the way that they play. And I think that's part of the reason that the Rams took him, because he plays so similarly to Cooper Kupp, where he's not blazing fast, but he has great hands and he runs good routes. Like, he's going to catch the ball if it's thrown in his
I
direction.
also feel like what went back, like he's in Cooper Kupp's spot. I feel like if they move Cooper Kupp to the outside, I feel like he'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like you
Cooper Kupp
said,
will play-
like you said,
Cooper
it's
Kupp
his
will play
system.
running back.
It's
Like,
his system. He's gonna be fine. Puka, and keeping Puka there, it's perfect.
I don't know. If Cooper's the best receiver in that spot in the NFL, then you have to put him back in that spot that he was in.
But like
even
even
if you're
just
gonna
said,
have
he's
to,
the system. Like even if he gets moved to the outside, they're gonna find a way to give it to him, no matter what.
They would have to change up some
Right.
could Puka
schematics.
play Robert Woods' role from their early time there?
Yeah, because I honestly
Yeah, I
think
think
that
so.
that's kind of a nice
Right.
comparison too.
Yeah,
for
like
him, a nice player comp.
That's
Like-
when they were kind of arguably best, is when they had Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp.
right? Like, even though I think that Cooper's a bit of a system receiver, I don't think that they're necessarily like substitutable right now, like perfectly. So I think you have to put Cooper back in the spot that he was in, just because, again, he's the best in the league at it. And then if you have to adjust for Puka, you do. But I think that if one Cooper gets healthy, you have to put him back in running the routes. And I mean, he's just such a good route runner and doing what he does right when he comes back.
Fair enough.
All right, moving things along, we're going to do our week 4 preview now. I'm going to kick things off. I want to talk about the Lions and the Packers, and I apologize. I talk about the Packers every single week. I feel like I promise I'm not a Packers fan. This game is interesting to me because is it the passing of the torch? Green Bay has dominated the division since the 90s with Brett Favre. Is this Detroit's time to shine? And I think that it might not be. Like, Detroit has played a solid 3 games of football. The Packers have been kind of hot or cold. It's going to be interesting to see which team shows up. If Jordan Love's hot, I think the Packers may win this game. Their defense has looked solid. Christian's already shaking his head no, so we already know he's going to pick Detroit when we get to the picks. But Jared Goff's good at football. Anybody who says he isn't is just a hater and a lover of Stafford at this point. Detroit needs to get Gibbs the ball. We talked about Miami and how they use their running backs earlier. They move them all over the field. Jahmyr Gibbs had like 17 carries for 80 yards this past week, I think, but they were all inside zone. They were all in between the tackles, and that's not how you use a weapon like that. He needs to be getting 20 touches a game total through the air and on the ground. Get him the ball. If they get him the ball, then I think Detroit should be fine, but also don't sleep on Green Bay. I, as of right now, have the Packers winning 31-28. But
I just think Detroit's a stronger team and way better than them on both sides of the ball. I trust Goff more, even though Jordan Love has looked good, and I'm on a Jordan Love train. Like, I like him. I think he's going to be their next guy. Their receivers are just better. They had Sam Laporta looks great. He might be like the best tight end in the draft. I was shocked by that. He has been doing nuts for them, and they almost get Jameson back. Amon-Ra is still Amon-Ra. And then their defense, even though there's some keys like missing, I still think Dan Campbell, with the way that he has people coaching them, they're just going to be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if Derek Carr doesn't get hurt in this previous game, like, I think the Saints hold on and win that game. Like, I get that you're not high on the Saints. I get it, but like, the comeback doesn't happen if Derek Carr's in the game, right? You're talking about Jameis Winston. Like, there's a complete difference between the two guys. But I think the things that play towards the Packers in this game is the Lions secondary is not very good. And secondly, Christian Watson says it's the plan for him to play this weekend.
all right.
And so week 4, the first game that he plays this season, and they've had a decent passing offense even without him. And so, like, I think that could play in the Packers' favor.
So I know you have the Saints for your preview, so I'm just going to say one last thing, and then I'm going to turn it over to you to do Steelers Texans.
Yeah, he has Saints.
My bad. Eli has Saints. So I'm going to say one thing, and I'm going to pass it to Eli. The Saints are better with Jameis Winston at quarterback than Derek Carr. Eli, take it away.
All right. So I might disagree with you in my preview. So as you mentioned, Derek Carr, he got hurt. He had a sprained AC joint, listed as week to week, but expect Jameis this week. Probably won't come back. Rumors are that they're really going to ease Carr into it, and maybe it's because they have Jameis. I'm sure that helps them as well. Baker's only thrown one interception this year. It came last night against the Eagles. The Saints quarterbacks, they've been sacked 12 times, which is tied for 4th worst in the league. However, the Bucs, they aren't very good at running the ball so far this year. They're tied with the Texans in last place and rushing yards per attempt, under 3 yards per carry. As for the red zone offenses of both teams are atrocious in the red zone. The Bucs only score a touchdown 37.5% of their red zone trips, whereas the Saints only score a red zone touchdown 40% of the time when they're in the red zone. Because of this, I think the game's going to come down to who can get 7 when they're in the red zone and not just settle for the field goals. Bucs have forced 5 interceptions, and when hearing that Jameis is going to start, that kind of excites me if I'm a Bucs fan. The Saints do lead the league, however, in passes defended with 26, and they have 4 interceptions as well, so they're right there with the Bucs. The Bucs have struggled on third down defense, giving up over 50% of conversions, but they do make up for it in their red zone defense, as they've only allowed 3 touchdowns on 9 red zone possessions, so only giving up touchdowns 33% of the time when the team is in the red zone. I think because of all these stats, just from these stats, I haven't watched too many Bucs games, but I'm assuming that the Bucs are playing a very big bend but don't break defense. I think that when you play Jameis, I think it's scary to me if I'm a Saints fan and I hear Jameis is starting and you're playing a bend but don't break defense, because at some point Jameis is going to get impatient and he's going to want to try to force the ball down the field. Along with the Bucks being able to create turnovers, I have the Bucks winning the game. I think they win 27-21, somewhere around there. I like the Bucks in this game, even though the Saints are favored, again, just because of their ability to create turnovers. And I think that as much as the Saints might want to throw the ball underneath, Jameis is going to get impatient at some point and want to bomb the ball.
I mean, if anybody knows about Jameis's turnovers, it's the Bucks. And so I think that playing his former team isn't necessarily going to work in his favor this game. I think that this game is going to be a little bit more lower scoring. I think it's going to be a defensive game. Like you talked about, like their defenses are both pretty solid in forcing turnovers this season. And so I do see that the Bucks winning it as well, probably in like a 20-13 type fashion where it's kind of lower scoring. But I mean, a lot of turnovers, I don't know,
So
trying to run the football but can't.
Do you think the Saints blow that lead even if Derek Carr doesn't get hurt then, Hayden?
I'm not sure. I don't think that Jameis had an impact one way or the other on the game, if I'm being honest. I think that Green Bay played some terrible football at the beginning, and then Jordan Love kind of let it loose a little bit, took some weight off of his shoulders, and was fine. So I'm not sure, honestly. I don't think that there's a huge drop off her gain with Jameis to Derek either way, and I do lean more towards Jameis. I think that there's more upside there, and I don't think that the risk is as great as people think it is, especially since people forget that Derek Carr just a year ago ended the Raiders season and his Raiders career turning the ball over 3 times in Pittsburgh on Christmas Eve night. But all right, Josie or Christian, whoever wants to take it.
Me? All right, I'll go. Talking Steelers at Texans. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to talk about, I feel like, with the Texans, so I'm going to try to keep it kind of short. They look great. They looked great on this past Sunday against who I think a lot of us thought was going to be the front runner in this division for this year. Is like, as bad as the Jags looked, the Texans looked great. And a lot of that is because of a guy that I want to talk about a lot is CJ Stroud. Eli's usually the stats guy, but I'm going to throw some stats out there for you guys. Based on Stroud's start to his career and how historic it's been so far. Is like, he has the most pass attempts without an interception to start a player's career. In 3 games, he has 121 passing attempts without an interception. It's 40 passes a game. It's like they're passing the ball. It's not a matter of like, he's handing the ball off, blah, blah. Like he's just not turning the ball over. He has 906 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, and no picks in 3 games. He's averaging over 300 passing yards a game, just over a touchdown a game, and no interceptions. And he's got a 98 QBR if you're into that kind of thing, if you buy into the whole QBR thing. And you might say like, he's just kind of dinking and dunking it. They have 11 completions of 20 plus yards, which I'm pretty sure leads the NFL as far as like, I think other than maybe the Dolphins, with throwing the ball down the field. So like they're throwing down the field.
He hit Tank Dell on a deep shot this past week.
Yeah.
So.
One other thing that Stroud has had this season is 11 completions of 20 plus yards. His yards per completion is 11.6 yards per completion, which is right now higher than Kirk Cousins, Justin Herbert, Jared Goff, and Patrick Mahomes, his yards per completion. Stafford is slightly higher, and then Tua is obviously off the charts with 14.2. So like as far as like pushing the ball down the field, like he is pushing the ball down the field with the top guys in the NFL right now. So again, it's not that he's just dumping it off. The one big knock on the Texans offense so far this year, they've given up 11 sacks. He's been sacked 11 times, which is the 7th most, tied with Derek Carr. And they gave up 0 sacks this past week. So they went 5 and then 6 and now 0. A big part of that is they have 4 linemen that are on IR. Juice Scruggs is on IR and Titus Howard, 2 of the names that are there.
Juice.
And Laramie Tunsil's missed weeks 2 and 3. So who knows what's going to happen this coming weekend, but I think that is going to play a big part, especially with how good the Steelers pass rush is like, can that line hold up and keep him from getting sacked 5 or 6 times? Because I mean, in the game that they've won, he was sacked 0 times. And in the 2 games that they lost, he was sacked 5 and then 6. So, I mean, I think that the Texans played a near flawless game, but it's going to be overshadowed, rightfully so, by like the Dolphins. Like obviously the Dolphins play like the pinnacle of football, but like if you look at it, like the Texans played a great game with very little mistakes, but it's overshadowed by everybody talking about Taylor Swift and the Dolphins. So.
Did something happen with Taylor Swift this week?
All right, so
You're the Swiftie.
I mean, there's no chance the Steelers don't get after Stroud. I mean, they're gonna terrorize them this weekend. The Steelers lead the league in sacks. You mentioned that the Texans didn't give up a sack this week, but then 5 and 6 in week 1 and week 2. I mean, that's rough. I don't see the Steelers not coming away with a win here, even though it's like the Steelers to play down to a team like this. I see the Texans as, even though they had a great game and they won, I still see them as a bottom 4 team in the league. Mm-hmm. And last year, the bottom 4 teams they were 1 and 12 following a win. So I don't think the Texans are able to get back-to-back wins. The Steelers offense looked better. I think Highsmith and Watt really get after Stroud, and I think the Steelers take care of business this week.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the Steelers side of the ball, like I think with the Steelers, like for Steelers fans out there, like don't overreact to 2-1. They're top of the division right now. It's like they've still played iffy offensive football basically across the board.
Not iffy, terrible.
Yeah, like it's been really bad.
This past week wasn't terrible.
They played the Raiders.
It was serviceable, I would say, this past weekend. It still wasn't good, but it was serviceable.
They threw the ball downfield.
They had some rhythm, which they haven't had in the past 2 weeks. They did throw the ball downfield. I mean, that toss to Calvin Austin when Pickett was about to get hit. I mean, it's beautiful. It was a beautiful placement. Calvin Austin's speed was on showcase for everybody to see in primetime football. So I do think that people are going to start looking at the Steelers differently, but I don't think there's a reason to overreact to them being first in the division, even with the division being as good as it is. I think that the Raiders are one of the worst defensive teams in the league. They have one player on defense, and his name is Max Crosby. Devon Diablo is good, but like you look at that, it's like Max Crosby is incredible. Like he's probably like, I would argue, a top 5 edge guy right now. It's like you'd have TJ, Micah Parsons, Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett. I would say that he's above guys like Joey Bosa right now. Like maybe that's a hot take for you guys, but like I would say like Max Crosby in my mind is that like number 5, and he's the only one in that entire list of everybody I just mentioned that wasn't taken in the first round.
Yeah,
fourth round pick.
Even if he is top 5, it's like those 4 guys.
I disagree. Actually,
you don't think there's a huge gap? Even I think top 3 gap. Gap.
Not even top 3. I would say. All right, top 3. Yeah, Bosa, Watt, and Parsons. I wasn't thinking Bosa at first, but yeah, those 3, and then I would say a drop off, and then after that, though, I think that there's a huge clutter of guys, almost all the way down to 20.
You put Crosby on Myles Garrett's level?
Yes.
See, I
think Crosby's better against the run than Myles Garrett is.
Yeah, but I mean, edge right now in the game, you just think pass rusher.
Yeah, I think that the difference between those 4 guys that I mentioned first and Crosby being at number 5 is I could see any of those first 4 guys winning Defensive Player of the Year if they haven't already, or winning it multiple times. I don't know that Crosby's ever going to have the rapport enough in the league to ever win it. He's going to have a great career, kind of like Chandler Jones. Just have the guy on the opposite side of him, have a great career, have like seasons where he has 19 sacks, but he's never going to be in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year because he wasn't taken in the first round. It's like with how much analytics and study goes into the draft, to let a guy like this fall to the 4th round is like, I don't know. There's something inexplicable about it that he's going to be an underdog basically his entire career, in my opinion.
Don't forget about Von Miller when he comes back for that list, though. He could bounce back.
Top 5 though.
I could see.
You could argue, he was.
I could see.
He has to earn it, but he was before he got hurt. He was nuts.
Yeah. And then just to talk briefly about the pass rush. So TJ Watt, I know everybody basically knows that at this point he's on the pace for Defensive Player of the Year again. But like in 3 games, he has 6 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries, and a touchdown. And in those 3 games that he's played so far, he's gone against 2 top 6 offensive lines, according to PFN's post week 2 ratings. It's like they had the Browns ranked as the number 2 offensive line behind the Eagles, and then
Niners.
The Niners were actually ranked low, which was wild to me.
Okay.
But the Raiders were ranked as the 6th best offensive line according to PFN.
Well, Jimmy G wasn't sacked the first 2 weeks of the season. Yep. So all right.
And so like you look at that, it's like he's played against 2 top 6 offensive lines statistically, because PFN only
and the Niners
goes off
line.
of that. In the Niners line, which it's kind of sacrilegious to have a line with Trent Williams at 26, but
to be fair, Watt wasn't going against Trent Williams, though. That was Highsmith's side.
Which Highsmith saw some success in that game a little bit too, like not a lot, but all that to say is like, at this point, I think a lot of Steelers are Steelers fans are thinking is, like, is he going to go for the sack record again? He has 6 sacks in 3 games. He's averaging 2 per, and he's on pace for 34 sacks. 9 of their remaining games are against bottom half offensive lines. They've got the Texans at 23, the Rams at 20, the Jags at 24, Titans at 31, the Bengals twice at 19, the Cardinals at 25, the Patriots 17, and the Seahawks at 30. Like, yes, there's some injuries in those. Like with the Seahawks, they have good tackles, but they're injured right now. Like, I'm not saying he's going to get 34 sacks, but like, is it unrealistic to think that against those 9 teams, he could average 2 sacks per game in those ones? And then at that point, that puts him at 24.
Which think
is
is
already
a
the
feasible.
record.
That's a
and then there's
feasible
5
number.
more games in there that I didn't even account for yet.
Just please stay
Like,
healthy,
listen,
TJ. Just please stay healthy.
It's so hard to get sacks in the NFL. I know he's not going to break. He's not going to get 30. I don't think it's unrealistic to think he's going to get 24 sacks this year.
No, but like we just said, I feel like Parsons, Bosa, like they're also capable of that. Daniil Hunter, he's off to a fast start right now.
I mean, Myles Garrett he was kind of at the middle of it, and then he got 3 sacks this past weekend. Or 3.5 sacks this past weekend. Like, at any given point, any of these monster guys can have a 4-sack game and jump up the rankings to like 2nd or 3rd. Like, I think Myles Garrett's at I think he's like 4 or 5 now or something, maybe even 3.
It just shows how many freaks there are in the game right now, where there's these insane edge rushers that teams obviously plan to thwart and go against, and these guys can still get 3 or 4 sacks. I mean, these guys are just on a different level of what edge rushers can be. I mean, again, you saw what the Titans did to try to thwart Myles Garrett, and he still got 3.5 sacks. I mean, you see guys trying to chip, do whatever they can against TJ, and it just doesn't matter. He gets there, and same thing with Parsons. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And I mean, even on the other side, like people keep talking about Alex Highsmith, like he's seeing success even against good left tackles. It's like, if you're going to chip TJ, you can't really chip him as well. Or like you throw in the third guy, why am I blanking? Herbig.
Marcus Golden too. He has 2 sacks. Yeah.
Like Herbig is like, even against like starters now where he's not playing in the preseason, like I've seen him have a lot of success on pass rush. That one, I mean, he was gonna technically sack Deshaun Watson until he got that egregious face mask. Which, did you see that Deshaun got fined for the 3 excessive?
Could have been suspended actually if you look at the rules.
They had 3 plays that they deemed excessive.
I'm not disagreeing with the rules, but that'd be so like the NFL, I guess.
He got fined like $30,000 for his 3 excessive roughness plays in that game. But like, I mean, he had 2 really bad face masks. He really did. Like, I don't remember the third one, but the 2 that I remember were pretty bad.
Face masks one was bad. Like when you're stiff arming, it's like
he's never played football before.
That's what I'm trying to defend guys that play football. Like if you're on defense, I know stiff arms are different than defense.
He
like your hands just go.
Alexander into the sideline, tried blaming it on him.
If you watch his were unnecessary. We're getting off topic, but those were unnecessary, and the fines were worthy.
Yeah. Anyway, 24-13 Pittsburgh. That's my prediction for this game.
But Eli, we never got your prediction for yours.
I said 27-21.
Okay.
Bucks.
But Christian, yours?
So I got the Bills Dolphins. They play each other twice, but I see one of these games being a high scoring game. I see Dolphins winning both, but honestly, this game I could see it going high scoring for both sides, or it could be a low scoring game because I just feel like that's what always happens with these matchups. Like last year in the playoffs,
they get all hyped up, and then
it ends up like that, like with New England. But Dolphins, I see this game being a high scoring game because Bills just became hot again. Their offense has been doing good. Their defenses look good. And same with Miami. Their offense, you cannot stop them, it seems like right now. And their defense just looks like they're perfect right now with them. So I see the Dolphins winning 35-28. I think Tua has a big game. I could see either quarterbacks throwing multiple picks, though. I feel like it's going to be a very, very pass-heavy game. But I see Josh Allen making more mistakes against Vic Fangio's defense. I think their defense, they have a better defensive mind on their side, helping them win the game. And then they have McDaniels just running the ball all over them, and then have Tyreek deep. I just don't see them stopping the Dolphins both times, but I see this one being the high-scoring game.
I mean, the Bills are going to have to get after 2-0. They have a very high pressure rate, the Bills do. But I mean,
They still don't have Von Miller yet.
and McDaniel's going to be ready for it. I mean,
Yeah.
you see some of their spacing plays where they just like they bring somebody in motion, somebody goes inside, somebody goes outside, and they hit them, and Tua gets the ball out in 1.5
Like they
seconds.
almost beat them last year with Thompson as their backup quarterback. I mean, I think they might have lost by 2 possessions.
No, but you're right. Skylar Thompson kept them in the game. Yeah.
So you think Matt Malone's gonna hurt somebody this weekend, or
Wouldn't be shocked. He's the new Vontez Perfect, dude.
What's gonna happen? What's
This
gonna
guy does
happen?
not like Matt Malone?
What's gonna happen if somebody
love
gets
him.
hurt? Like what's
Good.
what are they gonna look like?
I can't do it twice.
All right. Eli's trying to get Christian canceled. Christian, did you say your final score?
I think it's gonna be 35-28 Dolphins.
35-28.
Well, who's home this week?
Buffalo.
At Buffalo.
But the weather looks it's like 78 and sunny.
Oh, then yeah, Miami's whooping them.
Whooping them.
Yeah.
All right. So last couple of weeks we've played
Oh,
Weddle.
new segment.
Oh.
I'm going to call this segment Audible. So basically, I'm going to throw something random at you guys. It could be like a top 5 tier list. This week, I'm going to give you top 5 foods to eat while watching football. I'm going to tell you 5 of them in no particular order. And without knowing what the next one is, you got to put it 1 through 5.
Did you guys know about this?
No?
All right. Luke's just flying off the seam of his belt. All right.
All right. First one, you have no context. Nachos.
Put it at 5. I don't think it's a
4 or
top
5.
one.
I'm the pickiest eater
I don't think
ever,
it's a
so
top
I
one, but
feel
I
like
think it's
I
on
should
the
have
list.
less of a say than you guys.
I think it'll be 5 or 4, but I'll go with 5.
I would say it's at 5 at home, at 4 at the stadium.
Well, what if
You're
you're
at
yeah,
the stadium,
stadium,
it's-
that's
if
what
you're
I
at the
was thinking. I
stadium,
was
it's
talking
3
to
or
you.
4. If you're at home, I'm never eating nachos. It's 5. Like,
what if
Yeah,
Luke
Wendy's-
comes up with
that's what
some
I'm saying.
raunchy thing? Like we
he's
have
gonna
no
give us-
idea what
no,
he's
he's
gonna
gonna
say.
give
I
us
feel like stadium
respectable.
food, nachos are always there, and everyone goes for
All
nachos.
right, so
Nacho-
final
and it's
answer
they're
5.
easy to
as long as
Yeah.
it's a spicy cheese, then we're good.
I'll go 4 to protect myself from
All right,
something I really don't
I like
I think
4.
4 is
I want
fair.
that like.
Because what if they do? What if he
Four.
does like corn dogs or something like that? Like I think.
Whoa.
I like corn dogs. I would eat a corn. All right,
basic
corn dogs
thing.
are
all right, Luke 4. Luke 4.
Next one, pizza.
1 has to be 1.
2.
Two.
It has to be 1.
Wings are gonna be in
Wings
there,
are
right?
gonna be
wings
one.
over pizza.
Easily. On
I'm
a
going
Sunday.
1. I'm going 1.
Pizza's 1 for me, dude. Pizza is the best food on the planet.
All right, we gotta do rock paper scissors shoot over this
All
because
right, all right. Me and Christian, are we doing best 2 out of 3?
2 out of 3.
Best,
All
yeah,
All right,
best 2 or 3.
rock paper scissors shoot. Rock paper scissors shoot.
Wings. Really good.
Hey, I'm
You got
sorry.
swept.
I don't know.
Rock, paper, instead of ball don't lie, rock, paper, scissors
All right,
don't
well,
lie.
pizza's a 2.
Pizza's a 2.
Pizza's
All right.
Did we decide 4 for nachos?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
yes, yes.
4 for nachos.
Next, we got jalapeno poppers.
Oh, dude, that's gonna put
5.
Gotta be, if you're saying, yeah, really,
I'm
okay,
thinking
I'll-
like, what are we
I
gonna
was
get?
gonna
Like
say
wings and
3 too.
burgers? What are we
I
getting?
think we're
Wings
doing
and something
3.
else.
I think it's
I
3.
say
What if he gives
5.
us wings and like something else good?
I personally like jalapeno poppers.
Yeah, I'm gonna go
I would
3
go
on
3,
that.
but
All right,
I
Eli,
understand
Josie,
5.
you guys
I
do
understand
rappers.
5. So
He understands
understands
5.
five.
Okay.
All right,
understand
fine.
it.
We're
I
going
get
5.
it.
We're going
I mean,
5.
how often are you having jalapeno
all
poppers?
right, Luke,
That's
so
a good
tell
late
us
night
what-
snack. It's a
Hey,
much better late night
shush,
snack.
shush.
I'm trying to
Tell us where we're at. Tell us where we're at. Tell us where we're at.
What do you mean by that? Like, what,
So
How many do we have correct so far?
no, not
No, there's
correct.
not
No,
correct.
no.
So
we are
Where? So
correct.
what numbers are available still?
okay,
1
so
and 3.
you did 5, 4, and 2?
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
no. Oh yeah, pizza.
yeah,
I
yeah,
forgot,
yeah.
All right.
Also,
I lost.
nachos is not better than jalapeno poppers. One last thought. If we could switch those 2, I would, but go ahead.
No, we can't.
I know.
Buffalo chicken dip.
3.
Yeah, that's a good 3. I like that, and I like that.
I would have put
That
this
was
at
fine.
5.
This is probably what my rankings would be right now.
This is that.
I would
I
have.
like.
Number 1.
I would have put it at 5.
That's a really good like
It's
Super Bowl
good.
snack.
Yeah,
that's like one of the
perfect, but I
top.
think if we get
valid.
wings is 1.
Yeah. All right.
Last one is wings.
Yeah, I love that. That's what
I'm
my
not
list
mad
would be
about it.
exactly.
Except for 4 and 5. That's the only
Alright.
thing I would switch.
And
I
one
think.
last thing, an honorable mention from everybody. It could be one on the list, but like, what's your favorite? Like, go down the line.
Ooh.
I'm gonna try to think of something outside.
Mine
of
are-
that.
I gotta think of something else.
I mean, no. If I'm like I said earlier, I'm a picky eater. I'll take a pepperoni bacon pizza.
What's the B-Dubs burger, Christian?
Oh, the
cheese curd bacon
cheese turd burger. Those are good.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
The cheese curd burger from Buffalo Wild Wings is like a burger on Sunday. It's like, but if you get a burger with like throw some junk on there, then I'm
That's
big.
pretty good.
Yeah.
I'll throw a hometown one out there for everybody. Pepperoni balls.
Oh, shoot. Yeah.
Pepperoni balls is a good
Especially
one.
from the Fort LaBeouf.
Yeah.
Oh, I probably should.
For watching football, I can't.
Erie, PA.
I can't think of anything else other than a burger that's not on the list. But wings, I would say, like wings are my favorite.
All right, favorite wing flavor.
Ooh, that's tough.
Parmesan garlic.
Hawaiian luau from
On
Otis
Sunday.
12.
Yeah.
Hawaiian luau from Otis 12 is my favorite. It's like
Otis
spicy
12,
and sweet.
shout out, sponsor us, please.
That's probably my favorite wing
like-
flavor. But simple flavor is probably honey mustard.
Best wing flavors are like
Cranch.
buffalo, garlic parm, and barbecue.
Cranch is low key.
Garlic parm is the
Cranches.
only one that he just named that I would eat.
See, I also like Cajun. I think Cajun wings are good too.
I just want something spicy.
All right,
whether it's
simple
hot,
flavors.
honey mustard, buffalo,
What was your
the burger with junk on it.
burger?
the B-dubs.
I would say simple wing is cranch. That's my favorite.
And what about like? Is that your number one?
Like
Your
honorable
honorable
mention,
mention?
something not on
Yeah.
the list,
Yeah. All right.
Yeah,
or what's something not on the list you like?
a burger. That's the only thing I can think of. Some like you, only burger.
All right, nice idea, Luke. Is that going to be like a recurring thing?
Oh yeah, I'll just jump in at any random moment for the next episodes and hit you with something random. It could be like directly game related, like favorite.
So there are going to be like sports questions?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And then maybe I'll do like most handsome QBs or something. Top 5 most handsome QB.
Retired
Most-
Tom Brady.
Most beautiful NFL wives. And girlfriends for Hayden, the local Swiftie around here.
Josiah is married. The rest of us are not. But anyways, we're going to play Weddle now. Back to football. Eli, do you have everything set up?
Yep.
All right, let's do this thing. We've done pretty well. We struggled a little bit with last week's hard one.
All right, so first one, just the easy, not the draft one, just the normal one.
You guys,
start.
let's start with Fred Warner. Let's do a different
Oh,
one.
this is offense only.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we'll just start with Kamara. Running back, that's 5'10", under 28, numbers lower than 41, and he is in the AFC.
Jonathan Taylor.
I was literally just going to say Jonathan Taylor.
See that short? Dang.
All right, they are in the AFC. They are between ages 24 and 28. The number is below 28. Not in the AFC South, though. Chubb.
Jacobs.
Well, that means he's 25, right? Because
Oh, yeah,
28 is
yeah.
not yellow, so he's 25. He's a young guy.
Oh, Chubb?
No. The guy we're talking about.
Oh, it's
because
25.
Age
Gotcha.
28 and up, Kamara is not yellow. So that means he's 25. I'm fairly certain.
So what's that, 4 years ago? So like 2019 draft class.
Josh
Jacobs,
Jacobs. I would go Josh
Jacobs.
Jacobs.
Yep, Josh Jacobs.
My
All
boy
now,
Christian.
Now for the hard one. Start with Fred Warner. All right, so he is in the NFC. He is on defense, not a linebacker. Below 6'3", older than 26, but around there, probably 27, and number lower than 54. So probably a corner, maybe a safety.
Jair Alexander.
Yeah, but wasn't he just the one?
We might have guessed him. I don't know if he was.
alright.
It wasn't him. It was
Let's try it.
Or something.
All right, not in the NFC North either, and not a cornerback. Still older than 26. Above 5'10", but below 6'3". Above number 23, below number 54.
It is the NFC North.
No, it's NFC East or South.
Nah.
NFC
Slay.
East
Could be Darius?
safeties.
No. Won't be Slay.
What? It's
Maddox?
well,
See,
no, he's a corner, and it's not a corner, right?
No.
Oh, it's not cool.
Xavier McKinney, giant safety.
he's not over 26. He's young.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be a defensive lineman if they have a number in like the 40 or
If it was like an edge rusher.
like a 40.
Well, doesn't it mean that it's not a linebacker?
Yeah, but it could be.
So
They might have edge differently. I don't know if they do or not.
okay, like a
They might
4-3
not.
DN. All right. Well, let's find out what division. So, do you guys want to do NFC East or South?
You want to do?
I don't
McKinney?
think it's anything in NFC East.
So we can get safety too.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, NFC East safety above 6 foot, below 6'3", older than 25, obviously because they're older than 26, so probably 27, and below 29, so probably around 28.
Pinnock?
He's not that old.
NFC East, so
Washington
Giants,
safeties.
Curl and they're young. And
Curl and
DeForest.
Forrest are both young. Dallas is it Jaron Kirst?
Malik Hooker?
is Hooker that? Hooker
Hooker's
was like
like
16,
28.
2016,
Hooker-
2017.
Hooker-
Hooker's
almost
probably
30.
yeah.
It's either Hooker or Kirsten.
Christian's been on fire.
Wow.
Jeez,
yeah,
crazy.
go and do draft duel.
Yeah.
All right, again, this is the easy one, so offense only. So loads up. I think we usually start with Dak.
We did last time.
Yeah, mid round.
All right, lower than round 4. Draft recently, more than 2016. And the NFC, not a quarterback.
So lower than round 4 means 1, 2, or 3.
Yep. So probably a running back. Just because these are usually easier, maybe a receiver. 18.
Just
What year was Dalvin?
Well, 2018's not really that recent, and he's not
It just has
NFC
to be
anymore.
28. Oh, yeah. Well, it's just drafted by.
Oh,
You wanted to just do Dalvin Cook for me?
I was going to say Cam Akers.
that's who I was actually thinking.
What round was he?
Third?
Then he might,
Second or
'cause it's-
third?
It's yellow
I think he was
for-
second. He was second.
All right, drafted in 2020, round 2, below the 52nd overall, however, and he's in the NFC South. Drafted in the NFC South or the NFC North.
And that means he's a defensive player, right? Because QB and running back are.
I think this is offense only. I think this is the easy one, so it's probably just going to be a receiver.
Good call.
Who was the 2020 draft class? That wasn't COVID yet, was it?
Jefferson was
That
first.
was 2020 was Burrow.
I thought that was 2021 because
No,
wait,
'cause he was
COVID.
injured
That
as
was the
well.
first.
It was Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow,
So J2,
Tua.
Second round receiver. It's going to be a second round receiver in the NFC South or the NFC
Oh.
T Higgins. No, that's
that
South
NFC.
or North.
Was that DK?
And not
He was
NFC
sixth,
West.
Yeah.
And he was a later pick than 52.
So North, Vikings,
No, the
Lions.
Packers didn't take a receiver that year,
No.
right? They got
Packers.
Love and Dylan.
I mean, I guess
the
it
first
could
two
be a
picks.
tight end.
Wait, they did Amari Rodgers, but that was third round.
Is there a
Not-
tight end? What year was Hawkinson? 2021?
He was a first.
He was the year
round pick.
before.
He was like
He was
20.
Noah Fant,
Yeah, he
both
was-
first round picks.
He was the year that Bush got drafted. The year Sue traded up. So Kyler Murray's draft.
Bears, Packers, Lions.
We just want to narrow down to which division it is.
Yeah.
So what's NFC South receiver that was drafted in 20? Olave too recent. Olave was like
Pittman
last year,
Jr.
wasn't he?
Who?
Pittman Jr.
In the NFC.
AFC.
Bucks, Panthers.
Godwin?
Oh, LaVisca Chenault.
Oh, Chanel.
I think it
He was
must be
drafted by Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Good call.
Terrence Marshall.
Mm.
Yeah. That's third round though, I think.
You sure?
I don't know. We'll see. You're on fire, so we should guess it anyway.
NFC. So it's an NFC North tight end, 2020 second round. Unless
Irv
this
Smith?
is defense too, but I'm pretty sure this is easy.
It's-
I mean,
Irv
it
Smith?
couldn't be an O lineman.
It's
Maybe
not
an
Irv
O-lineman.
Smith, is it?
How old
What
is he?
is it?
Is he older than that?
I don't think so. That might be.
He's
Irv
only
Smith.
he's only in
I
like the
think
third year in the
he's-
league.
I think he's
just-
older than that.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
he is.
So NFC North tight ends right now.
Cole Kmet.
Yeah.
It's Cole Kmet.
Yeah.
I'm like 90% positive it's Cole Kmet.
Wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, there it is.
All right.
Hey,
Hard
look at me.
mode.
We struggle with these ones a lot more.
Well, there's more.
Yeah.
So this is defense.
It's probably It's probably going to be sometimes they'll do offense for hard mode, but probably going to be somebody on defense. So who's like a
Max,
Landon Roberts.
third round defender.
Oh,
we want someone with like a middle number though.
What year was like Highsmith drafted or what?
He was a
He was
third round.
COVID year. He was
Third
COVID
round.
year.
It's a good one.
All right. Later than 20, so 2020, 2019 and before. Not a linebacker, but on defense and a third rounder. And in the NFC.
All right, third rounder, NFC defensive
Like a third
back.
round corner.
Jeremy Chin.
He was second, I think.
I don't think he was. I think he was third.
well, we can narrow down the division if it's not. He was-
NFC, but not
it
the
was.
South, not a safety. Still third rounder. And not in 2020. So NFC East corner.
No, there's no one. Maddox did not get drafted that year. There's no one in that draft.
Well, it's before 2020.
Try Maddox.
It's a Philly player that's a corner before 2018 and in the third round. So
James
cornerback,
Bradbury.
No, he wasn't drafted by that.
corner drafted
Oh, they
by
were
the
drafted- he was
Eagles.
drafted by the Panthers.
Probably in 2017. 2017.
Wasn't Eric Rowe.
Third round.
2017 was the year that they won the Super Bowl.
Could be
Click off that for a
2016.
second. I wanna see
Yeah.
that.
Was it Douglas?
Rasul Douglas.
He was with them. They
Yeah.
had days.
Yeah, I think he was drafted in like 2016, 2017. So
Well, Christian should be a pro at this.
Yeah, Christian's is that 6 straight for Christian?
might have,
Josie got sprinkled in there.
Cole Kmet one.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us on the Second and Short podcast. We'll see you next week.